I'm E.M. Schorb. Back in the 20s, F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote a story called The Rich Boy, the first line of which is, "Begin with an individual, and before you know it, you have created a type. Begin with a type, and you find that you have created nothing." He went on to say, somewhat paradoxically but correctly, that there are no types, no plurals. There is a rich boy, and this is his and not his brother's story. I will say only, as an introductory to the reading of my poems, paraphrasing Fitzgerald's statement about his rich boy, that there was a poor boy, and this is his and not his brother's story. I was that poor boy, and out of the circumstances of my life, I have created some of these poems. They do not pretend to be representative of anyone else's life but my own. But the sheer circumstances of poverty will probably give some meaning for others. I hope that they'll have meaning for others. Now I'm going to read a few. I'm winging this, so a bit of patience. As a pro-em, I'm going to read a poem called Kindred Spirits. I think that probably all poetry comes from, ultimately, the sense that life is limited. We all are going to die. And we think of the dead, and we think of the time. And when we think of it, if we feel that we can express it in a certain way, we, perhaps if we're inclined toward writing poetry or inclined toward music or something like that, we make an attempt to express our sense of life. It gives us, well, it helps us to value life. So the first poem I'm going to read is called Kindred Spirits. The kindred dead have taught me how to sing. They hover in the wind at night, I say, and chant in dirges while they're hovering in readiness to hold my breath away. I've heard the dead elm's charry branches bend under the weight of nobody at all, until a greater ruggedness would rend were it desirable to them and fall. I know they're in my mind, they tell me so, down deep within the labyrinthine lobes. They dance and whistle in the wind, I know, somewhere inside the gray and outer robes, but they project themselves into my yard and frolic like the children of their past, obscene and awful, shrunken up and charred, that I may see their funeral at last. They fall upon my sleep, and when awake, they mock me underneath the midnight moon. They say that I am drowning in the lake. They tell me I will strangle on a spoon. I can't so much as take a simple bath without the water rising to the rim and looking at me with a look of death, as though to say, this is the end of him. What have I done to them? Why torment me? I know the inner laughter they must feel. I've seen that bird reflected in the sea who made the mariner go mad until he troubled purity with his sad tale and dragged the wedding guest down with the dead. I do not know if I shall rise or fall, or live as something different instead. I think it's this sense that taught me to value life and the people in it. And one of the people I valued most was my father. He was a part of the mainstream of his own era. at him. The poem is called Obituary. Incidentally, all these poems will be out in the spring in a volume called Poor Boy and Other Poems. Obituary, Edwin Marsh Schorb, Sr. Without the mummeries of death, by fire, but not by burning, but by breath of smoke, you died like some high god upon his pyre. Oh, quick, barbaric, merciful good luck. I had so many fears for you, my father. Your ribald binges must have racked your body. I feared some lingering illness, and I'd rather have anything attacking one so bawdy than an unthrilling, invalided life, spent somehow to its end in spite and temper. Though there was one thing sterner than its strife, no death, no anything could make you whimper. Your life was preparation for its pain. You trained for ill and not for good, as Houseman advised his blear-eyed Shropshire lad to train when, moping melancholy mad, that yeoman had rhymed the cow to death. A country boy yourself, of German, Dutch, and English stock, New Jersey born and bred, hobbled ahoy and shining-faced. At 14 to New York you went in 1907 to be a runner on the New York Stock Exchange. No more a rube, no more a nonentity, but now, or then, a Wall Street runner plunging through the frantic money-making crowds America's romantic myth had brought to conquer fortunes. Time, events becloud so far bygone an era, the magic sort of moment that it was, the innocence of fledgling fortune hunters like yourself, whose world of thought was Yankee common sense and industry, who dreamed a sweet success sometimes into existence in a trice, posing mogul, robber, baron, tycoon, all those first comers who had set the price of such success so high, oh youngest son. Your struggle was a long one, studying beside the late oil lamp, oh, a handsome youth with raven hair, your eyes only seeing great dreams, reading of Rome, in law, in faith that education makes the man, with knowledge, as Bacon put it, being power. Your roommate, a brilliant graduate of Harvard College, who one day would become a diplomat and later an ambassador and large in a long-dead administration, instructed you in polish, as if you were his charge. Marry a rich woman, he told you once, Ed. That's my advice to you. I mean to do it myself. Indeed, that's what he did. Not you, though. Women meant too much. They knew you knew it, too. Handsome 21 bond salesman now, and coming as they called it then. They knew and loved you for it. Helped you to establish your reputation on the street and strew themselves like flowers at your feet, flashing their smiles like diamonds, their gems like teeth, attracting and repelling, always rich and husbanded by ghosts. A jeweled wreath of marleyed widows, beauties, and rich bitches, young and old, fell about your frail young shoulders. The day was almost won for trumpery. But meanwhile now the world was hurling boulders of war, had been since Ferdinand, Humpty Dumpty of peace, had fallen from the caving wall at Sarajevo 4 trenched and bloody years before. Time now for you to heed the call. You went with other would-be officers and gentlemen to be inducted and trained in the arts of martial leadership. But suddenly, amazingly, they handed you your discharge. We had won, had whipped King Billy and the Ottoman Empire. For better or for worse, the deed was done. And you, handsome young E.M. Schorb, Esquire, were free to enter stormy prohibition, that time of ought not but, and all be damned, when bathtub was synonymous with gin. An 89-day wonder, you had lambed back into civvies, lost the veteran's pension for my dear mother's merry widowhood. But not your fault, a bureaucratic trick that politicians played on motherhood is what we'll call it, for a sad laugh's sake. Your first wife was a dope fiend. She died young. The next, an upright nurse, good family, tubercular, although Bermuda bred, and oh, British to the bone, unamatory, or so you said, although you got a son by her. but not in Colorado, where you went to help her lungs and met someone more amatory. Governor's daughter she was, young, bright, and burning in her breeches, black-bottoming and charlestoning and being filled with the flapper's ripe and bitching itches until you ran away from both of them. By now you'd made the magic book, Who's Who. Success had come. You worked out of New York and lived uptown. And then the market threw its curve. Black Tuesday 29. What work of evil genius had occurred? Oh, fell green hand of money. Lost heydays. Your wife was gone, your son was gone, taken. What hell had happened, and had happened here. What grief. When, still young, you rode the elevated, the rumble of the wheels ground down your heart. That iron roar made you think quick death was fated. Thus wise against ambition raised your guard. From then on you'd invie against that world of business, finance, property, possessions that you were trained in. Overboard you hurled it, calling afterwards impedimenta, whatever slightest trinket stuck to you as to a summer melting wax, which washed away itself before the pier-side public view, whatever it stuck. The haberdashery was all you kept. The custom tailored suit, silk tie, the Homburg hat, the shining shoes. As you had worn them through the Prohibition toot, you wore them through the sad Depression days, the filth it wore, the Eisenhower 50s, when I was there to know you, aging father. I by then a young man, you in your 60s, hair briny with the years, a heavy breather, but still a regal leucomelanous head, bared now. The man who never wears a hat was what they called you then. You were ahead of time before the style, an old pace setter. Kennedy would make bare heads official. My reason is to save my head of hair. Hat stopped the circulation, you said. This'll become the style when people learn. Never will I forget those idiosyncratic quirks, those oddnesses that set you apart from ordinary beings so dramatically. I walking by your side in Newark, where we then lived, deep in a basement flat, where roaches climbed the walls like living paper, and damp night brought the rustle of a rat, would glow to see the people look. Oh, happier than a rich son to be the son of one so striking and distinguished in appearance. That gent I seed you with, are you his son? Yet of the poor, we were among the poorest. You'd married Mom in 1932, 1 year before repeal, deep in Depression days. Having met in a speakeasy, you decided to continue partying and did throughout the years by fits and starts. Though making money was a difficulty that interfered with freedom, your free hearts went on their merry way, higgledy-piggledy, from Honeymoon Hotel here in New York, where you escaped the bill by wearing all your wardrobe out the door, to when the stork dropped in your lap a wet, if wonderful, responsibility which you were not quite ready to live up to, though you tried. To be a father now, why, I've forgotten how to burp a child. I'm 45, soon 55. Now, door to door, you sold Band-Aids, thread, pots and pans, encyclopedias. Once more, you carried Bacon's quote in bold lettering on a business card. Knowledge is power. Oh, a library of books. Ah, melancholy morbid. How you read The Raven with your Barrymore-ish looks to help you dramatize as you recited. And to the ladies, how that angered Mom. You made her Julie O'Grady, not the lady, while you remained the colonel. Deaf and dumb with anger, she would not talk again until payday. The years went by. You went to work at managing hotels for a cheap chain. Then later you would try your hand at selling real estate, but selling was too rough. Now old Chalmers, 65. And then you read De Quincey and De Rope. Why, I have never even been alive. And that was how you found your way to dope and death as well. For you left home, went to a hobo rooming house downtown, and 3 weeks later, dead. Oh, poor Mom. I loved him. Understood him? No. She frowned. 6 dead in blaze in Newark, the paper said. I read the headlines on the Hudson Tube while on my way to Newark. Could you be dead? Yes. I identified you at the morgue. Without the mummeries of death, by fire. But not by burning, but by breath of smoke. You died like some high god upon his pyre. Oh, quick, barbaric, merciful good luck. Well, those were the days that I was growing up in Newark. And out of that came this poem, The Poor Boy. Now, The Poor Boy won second prize in the International Keats Poetry Prize competition last year and is in the anthology Keats Prize Poems, 1973. I say that as a plug because I don't want to remain a poor boy forever. I'll read it. The Poor Boy. Not having had inheritance or luck, undemocratically good blood or breeding, nor any gold that come from family stock that sets a young man up preceding maturity and forming for it pride in action and aristocratic strength, solace in having purpose in each stride, or discipline that carries to its length, I found myself romantically inclined, a muzzy mongrel with a barking mind. How I admire those men and women who were reared in order, dignity, and pride. You see it in their eyes, a voiceless vow, a knowledge leveling denied. Here now is social change preeminent. The masked man rises to his rightful place. But his ascension leaves a remnant of unredeemable darkness, of disgrace, and that all art must kowtow to a taste. Now it is rising, weaned on gutter waste. I know, for I have foraged in the lots of blackened cities, looking for a prize of red, discarded, unbroken flower pots to place my plants, to brighten eyes. I've shined 1,000 shoes along the streets of coughing cities all across this land. A child, I'd enter taverns and retreats the like of which to others would be banned. Oh, I know poverty, unhappiness, such things I know. I have no need to guess. And yet a sturdy strength comes out of it. That's undeniable, but at what cost? The strength of street-bred children is their wit and nerve. Nobility is lost in the hungry race of mongrels for bone, and honor hangs his head before the scene. The heart of the street urchin is a stone, ground more with each engagement until mean. We learn to fight and hate, or not to love, no matter who says so. We learn to shove. Well, some of the things that produce poverty are, I guess we all know, the fact that some of us own a lot of this country and some of us own very little of it. To put it in a most simplistic way, the natural resources are the riches of a country. And there were some good young men and women at Kent State University a few years ago, 1970. objected to this, who saw it. Just the other day, I noticed in a newspaper report that oil had been discovered off the coast of South Vietnam, which surprised me. Hey? I think I understand now why we were in Vietnam. Maybe I can tell Norman Mailer. Anyway, these boys and girls objected to this. Maybe they saw something. I wrote this poem, Dirge for the Dead Students. It's now coming out in an anthology called Kent Poems, and it's also in the, I'm proud to say, in the Kent State Archives on public view, framed at the library at Kent State. This is Dirge for the Dead Students. She only came to look, but bullets broke her flesh. A frost, she held a book when bullets broke her flesh, with almost wistful sighs. Her face was round and fresh. With almost wistful sighs, the bullets raped her body. With almost wistful sighs, they pierced her gentle body. And her book dropped open to a page all torn and bloody. Her book dropped open to a torn and bloody page containing nothing new. A torn and bloody page each child must learn to read. A history of our age each child must learn to read. Oh, study, students, study this history of greed. Oh, study, students, study. Learn what they want from you. Another age as bloody is what they want from you. Another age befouled, and nothing else will do. Another age befouled by great-granddaddy's greed. No wonder Ginsberg howled. Oh, great-granddaddy's greed. It sucks like a vampire bat, the blood of his living seed. Sucks like a vampire bat, the blood of our youth away. Sucks like a cornered rat, the pestilence of our day, and spits into our faces the horrors of our day, and spits into our faces, spreading disease and death, that virus among the races, spreading disease and death, destruction throughout the world with its maddening, murderous breath, destruction throughout the world, that Malthusian explanation. Picture the bombs being hurled, that Malthusian explanation, and a baby crying for shelter while the Senate is on vacation, and a baby crying for shelter, and her father and mother dead, and the bombs dropping helter-skelter, and her mother and father dead, and the president making decisions, who will his daughter wed? And the president making decisions, search and destroy is the way, and the president making revisions, destroy all their crops on the way. And the baby is blown to pieces while the president goes to pray. And the baby is blown to pieces while the president speaks to God. And the rich collect rent on their leases while the president speaks to God. And the students are shot for complaining. And the haves of the world think it odd that the children who have are complaining. These children have so much to learn, and the government's busy explaining. For these children have so much to learn, in double talk tripled twice over, how we keep what we get when we earn. In double talk tripled twice over, how ends do all means justify. In newspeak all wrapped up in clover, how ends do all means justify. And death to the man who denies it. So hush up, dear students, or die, for death comes to him who denies it, as many dead children could tell, and praise to the bastard who buys it, as many dead children could tell, and 4 dead students provided a proof in the sun where they fell. These 4 dead students provided us all with a living example that day in the sun when they tried it, gave us proof and a living example of what the old and their greed are about, and 4 dead students are ample to show what the state is about. Christ. Any one baby who died should have left us no shadow of doubt. Now 4 young students have died, shot dead in the name of the law, but in fact for the lies they denied, shot dead in the name of the law, for the terrible truth that they saw. And what are we all then? Well, this is about a tenth of the poems in the book called The Poor Boy that I've written. In the spring it will be out. You will be able to purchase it. Orders can be taken. I must do this commercial part. From Dragon's Teeth Press, El Dorado National Forest, Georgetown, California, 95634. 95634 it was. And that's it.